Have your catchphrase?
Yeah,
Catchphrase, yeah?
I've realised I've got one. It's like, sup nerds. Polystyrene shapes. Paint in the glue. Put Santa's beard on it. Bits and bobs. Nice stepped pieces. Islands. Stepped hills. Sup nerds. I've come over to Mr. Matt Knucklebones Miniatures little gaming space.
Yes.
To make cowpats.
Cowpat scenery.
He keeps getting asked questions on the internet every time we play games.
Yeah. Can you do a tutorial? So we are.
That's it. I know you're good at this, you.
Am I?
Yeah.
Fluencer.
Oh no.
How it's done so people don't keep asking me and they can refer to the video. So this is, I'm going to talk about how this stuff that looks like Santa's beard gets turned into this lovely piece of gunk. Now this stuff here is wadding, or in America they call it wadding, or quilting for making quilts, like the padding that goes inside things to make a nice quilted piece of...
It's the puff from your puffer jacket.
Yeah, it can be, yeah. And it comes on big rolls, so I've got stuff down here in the bag that's like a sheet of it. And it's quite cheap. It's like a couple of quid, a few quid. It depends where you go and what sort of quality you get. You obviously don't need mega quality. You're going to be covering it in paint and whatever. And it doesn't have to be super thick. You can get it really thick for sort of upholstery. The main places you get it are like haberdasheries or for old ladies' shops for making things. You can buy it online if need be, but it's cheap. At the very least, if you're really rushed, you can tear up an old pillow or a teddy bear, rip its guts out, or an old jacket if you find an old jacket or something, because that's the sort of bits and lumps from leftovers.
But the sheet material is easier to work with, I presume, for these purposes.
It gives you a uniform level, so that one's kind of like just flat. That's got lots of blobs and bits on it, and another layer of polystyrene which it's based on. So the whole thing is going to be showing you the process, which is going to get a bit messy. That's the main thing, is it gets messy and it takes a long while to dry. So now you've got your materials together, you're starting to make your islands, cut various random shapes, different sizes, different shapes, small ones, big ones.
Yeah, I love the way they stack up and you get like a stepped hill.
That really is nice. Quite a big thing that I accidentally did, and I should next time make some more. Is that they don't overlap. Sometimes where they've got overhangs, that could be quite nice as well.
Yeah.
But the main thing is before you start applying the wadding or quilting material, is make sure you've done all your edges and you've painted it. Because trust me, you'll end up for hours trying to put more paint on top to get that last bit of white polystyrene underneath, and it'll dry and then there'll be another glimmer of white polystyrene coming through. So the easiest way is just get them painted straight off the bat. I haven't done the base on this one. It's probably quite a good idea if you did the base as well, because sometimes if you've got them overhanging, it's nice that you can't see the white again. But that's things you live and learn as you go along. So the next step after that is getting really dirty and getting the paint on. But the first thing you need to do, paint the bases. Once it's dry, tack a bit of a sheet on, but have a big overhang. That's it. You'd be tempted just to go to the edges, but do a big overhang, and I'll show you why later on. So you've painted it brown, let that dry. Then what you can do is you can either go straight in by just laying the pieces of wadding, quilting over the top, and then start painting. This one, it's been kind of glued on already, because it sometimes makes it easier not to slip around, but the paint will glue it on, really. You're going to be putting so much emulsion on. Now I have here a big pot of brown emulsion that I had mixed up to a horrible brown. It matches the undercoat I use, which is a Vallejo one. So all we're really doing is getting a big brush with some paint and splodging it in. You need to put a lot on. Now the big thing is hopefully you'll see with some of the other footage, is how this is actually changing as you paint it on. It's giving you an instant texture that looks like some rough ground cover. Now one of the big arts is not to go right to the edges. Just go up to the edge and leave some fluff and some bits that are part painted. But in the middle bit, splodge it on. Loads of it mixed in.
And you need lots of it because this is plasticky, really, as it's synthetic material, so it's a bit hydrophobic.
Yeah, it's not going to dye itself. You're having to make sure it's well coated. And this is one of the reasons you wanted the base painted as well, because you're trying to work out what's painted, what's not. Now what I'm doing here is now I've got to the edges, is going over the edge and letting it hang down so it's roughly done. These are going to be all the vines that are hanging over the edge and the bits of root and muck. So that is really the basic, and you could leave it pretty much like that to dry. And that's it, you're done. Okay, so now we've built up a texture, a level. It's really sodden with loads of paint. Now I've left it here out on the edges, and they're hanging down because these will be all of our roots and bits and bobs hanging down over the edges, so you can see where they're dried.
Like, you know, that's a really good example. It's kind of like the riverbank, isn't it, where the soil's eroded.
Yeah. Yep, exactly, exactly.
You know, put some baby geese.
Boggy marshland in Scotland, or somewhere in Lord of the Rings or something, so where people died.
You're now kind of at
this point, yeah. So now you've got all these bits which are the white bits that you haven't pulled the paint into. So you can leave it to dry and then pull away all of these parts and go around the edges. Now, the other fast way of doing it, and gives quite a nice organic end, is actually burning the edges. Now, this you would normally do outside when it's windy and it's blowing away from you, and with a bucket of water to put it out if it does catch fire. Now, what I'm going to do is pull away some of the main bulk so it's not making too much of a flame. Pull those edges off, holding it down, giving it a pull to feather all those edges out. Put those into your pile of bits for later on. Now I've got this kind of frothy edge. Now this is where you get something with a flame. I've got this, I think was for, it's basically a big whoosh. Soldering, that was it, a soldering torch. Now here we go. What it does is it burns away the bits that don't have paint on. Now, basically, you go around the whole edge doing that. Gloves, so I don't burn myself. And it can feel the warmth coming through there. But you just do it slowly as you go along. And then pull a bit off. How much, it depends how much foliage you want hanging off the edge. And that is basically it. So, we've built up a bit of texture there, but let's do a little bit more. You can see how it's building up and not looking just like a flat thing. It looks like a bit of broken ground or swamp. So you can still have more of your bits off the edges, that you know, because you're going to have some bits off the edges in the future. Stick some more of those on there to build up some little different areas. Now, you can also get sand. Sprinkle in some sand in, that kind of breaks it up, and sometimes you might not even need to paint this anymore because you've built up some different tones in there. Then you can get some more dried moss broken up into it. I think sometimes it's the things having trios of things instead of just having like one surface and then another surface and another texture, or building up lots of different textures, so you look at it and your eye doesn't really go into looking at it. Getting some more coconut fibre. Yeah. Snipping off lumps in there, pulling it about. And now you've got loads on your pizza here again. So then just sealing the whole lot in with some more.
It's a thing I did a lot in art department in film and TV. It's like people try and do random things and they think about doing random, and as soon as you're thinking about random, it ceases to be random.
Exactly.
It's your brain that kicks in. So close your eyes and fling it about. You know,
that could get really messy.
Just not for the entire thing. Open your eyes, man. No.
But yeah, and I think it was also something in flower arranging. Somebody said to me, is never have 2s or 4s. Always have things in 3s, odd numbers. So 3 of this, 3 of that.
Yeah, there's prime.
That might be wrong.
No, it's prime numbers. That's how nature. That's where some years you get really bad, is because those prime numbers over 21, 24 years have coincided.
Gone in its cycles.
And the 2 things that you're mildly allergic to have really fucked you up. I've paraphrased that wildly. So let's go through it. I guess the process was the nice organic shapes.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking about. I always say like have a mini to hand when you're building terrain, so that you've got
yes.
a space for a base.
Space for a base.
Space
yeah,
for
I won't put him
base.
on this. That's all wet.
That's icky. That is.
But it's also making sure that you're not making. That's one thing. Is don't put too much on. So you've got places you can put them. It's like, oh, I'll put lots of bushes, lots of things, and then there's nowhere to actually put your miniature.
And there's like, if you make one that's that much smaller at least than the previous, you've got somewhere
that was it. Yeah.
You're not going to have, you know, if you did two that are so close together, your minis are going to be falling off.
Yeah. Stackability.
Cut the shapes.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely paint the dark brown on the foam card wood base shape, because it'll be a bugger to get that paint through this material.
You always see white bits coming out, because once you've done this, you're probably going to have to do another paint run over it, or even again afterwards, just to find those little bits where you've forgotten.
Sounds like one for doing in the spring and the summer.
Definitely. It's the drying time is one of the big things on this. It can take days for them to dry out.
So I'm just editing that. So there's a technique that you can also do here that you've seen in the old Star Trek. All those polystyrene rocks that you see on the planet, that's clearly a sound stage because it's got a perfectly flat floor. But those rocks are lumps of polystyrene with canvas thrown over it and then plaster. What we can do on model scale, cover those bits of polystyrene with essentially paper mache. If you wrap it in old newspaper, strips to go around the kind of tighter curves, that will dry a lot quicker than painting onto polystyrene. Wrap it with something, mix your paint in your glue, wrap those polystyrene bits, and then crack on with Santa's beard. So you've hit shapes, your island shapes, you've stuck Santa's beard on it.
Yeah, bit of the wadding, quilting. Yeah,
and
pretty
then
much.
Put in some of your...
It doesn't even have to be these materials. It's fine. Anything that's vaguely in twigs, bits of whatever, foam. Like we've even got sponges there you could tear up and put on there or whatever.
I mean, this material, this wadding is not dissimilar.
Exactly, it's the scouring pads. Yeah.
And as you're breaking it up, it's getting...
No, you got paint on you. That was something else horrible. But sand, dirt from this road you can find anywhere.
Yeah, nice. It's getting lots of texture in there.
Yeah. Then probably put a dry brush or a wash over it as well. That's one of the things. These have got washes on, which is something that you can do, but it can get expensive. I didn't really need to do that. Dry brushing probably is the best. Just go for something a touch lighter, then go over it.
Yeah, maybe start with a darker colour so you can dry brush something lighter.
That's a better idea. Yeah.
You know, starting from a black base coat is probably a good thing for terrain. And then because you can always go lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then as you were teasing the edges off, you were making sure you really held on to that.
So the whole lot doesn't come off.
So that you don't pull off all your good work that you've spent ages doing and ages drying. So this is the table we're about to play on, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you can mix them in with anything. So they don't have to be just fantasy. They can be sci-fi bits. We've got different heights. Ones that are kind of trench bits that aren't there. There's a block of foam with loads of it stuck over the top. You can mix it around. It's building up different levels. That's where they've been so useful. There might be some photos from some of our previous games Monk might be able to cut in, where we had like a big island in the middle, which was just a big pile of them that everybody went over to on rafts and fought across.
Didn't we have a game where these islands were moving around?
Oh yeah, we had them moving about and stuff on a swamp. So yeah, it's been so useful since we made loads of them, really. Yeah. Just as our main stable part of our gaming, really. And they're cheap and slow. They're not that fast to make. You need the drying time and space to lay them all out. So a garage, the back garden or whatever. Yeah. And it's mainly that wadding / quilting is the fast way of making texture. Like it's the same stuff that's on these boards. That is just a sheet of it put across on a piece of board. And then brown all over it. And that just gives it texture straight away. Instead of getting sand and gluing it all on, you can just get a sheet of that, stick it all on, put some emulsion over it, and you've got texture straight off the bat.
Hey look, we got excited. There is no outro. So wrapping up, that makes sense, right? Polystyrene shapes. wrap them in paper mache, which you've mixed the paint in the glue, put Santa's beard on it, any other bits and bobs of detritus that you so desire, and you can dry brush them, and then you've got these nice stepped pieces, so you can use them as islands, you can use them as stepped hills, you can just get up to other pieces of terrain with them. So yeah, watch the video a couple of times and make some notes. You know, just try again with the polystyrene bits before you go through the effort of wrapping them and whatnot, so that you get an idea if they actually work for you in the way you think they are at the sizes you make them at. That's definitely going to need a rewatch, isn't it? All right, like and subscribe and all that stuff on your way out. Thanks, nerds. Or Jake Paul, isn't it?
I could have him.
Yeah.
I could have both of them at the same time, I reckon.
One arm tied behind your back. You want some of this sunshine? You want...